you don't have any recourse.
Yeah.
So the day after you buy the house, right? You already had your inspector in there, the whole 9 yards, you're happy. It's the day before Christmas, you moved all your stuff in, got your turkey in the oven, whatever you eat, pork or whatever. The next day, you're having your Christmas party, everybody's getting down or whatever you do at Christmas time, right? The pipe behind the wall bursts and there's water everywhere. What can you do? Call a plumber.
So in the case of, I guess, buying it from a housing company, is that different? So in this case, it was kind of like a defective warranty. The foundation shouldn't work.
It's not the same. Now, caveat here is, whatever that word is, caveat is that this is assuming it's a structure that previously was lived in. If it's a brand new construction,
That's another story.
now you got a year's warranty in most states. So if something's wrong within that first year, you have every right to call the builder or whoever it was and say, this needs to be corrected. So most times when you're buying a new house, they create, at the time of the closing, the day that you go and pay your money and all the documents change hands, they create something called a punch list. You know what that is? That means if they piss you off, you just punch them. Right? Punch list. Not really. Right. What happens is, usually when you get new construction, there's some things that are not complete yet. Some things that still have to be fixed. Kind of like those towels, right? That rental place, right? You still need to fix the roof. Like that, right? Like say for instance, you buy a house now. Well, if you're going to have a paved driveway, right? You're going to have a paved driveway, they can't put pavement in it right now because I forgot what they call them, but the asphalt plants are closed at this time of the year. So you can close now with the understanding that when the spring comes, your driveway will be put down. So you bought the house even though it wasn't completed. That's part of your punch list. You may go in and there may be simple things like the covers for your outlets are off or something like that, or something needs to be altered. You can still close and have a list of things that still need to be repaired after the closing. But you have an entire year of a warranty from the time you buy that house, at least in Connecticut. Some other states it might be even more or maybe even less. So you have those kinds of warranties. But to your point of what happens a day later and something goes wrong, don't do anything about it. You're out. In fact, and it's funny you say that, because I had a client call me last week complaining because his sewer was backed up or something like that. Sorry, guy. Nothing I can do for you. It's just how it is.
Yeah, it's an interesting distinction. I guess that's kind of an advantage of buying a new house. You kind of get a little bit of the stuff. It's big stuff.
Yeah, I mean, it's like buying a used car, right? You buy a new car, you drive off the lot, and the tire falls off or something, or a wheel falls off. You come back up there and say, hey, look, you gotta fix this. But you buy a car from your buddy down the street, and you drive off the lot, and that same wheel falls off. You got it? And it's pretty much the same thing, right? So, we got through anything else you talk about, Dan? You seem to know exactly where this thing is going.
That's probably most of what I know.
Okay, all right. I exhausted you, which is good. All right, so let's see what else we got here. We had credit cards on here. I'm not sure budgeting debt. We already talked about budgeting, at least with your emergency fund stuff, right? So we talked about that. How to buy a home. You know, you normally need a real estate agent for that, right? You're normally going to have someone that does an appraisal. You know what appraisal is, right? Dan, you don't know what an appraisal is. Which is like the surprise. Matt?
Yeah, I was thinking, is that different from the inspector, the appraiser?
The appraiser, and that's an interesting point because a lot of people mix them up. They're not the same people. That's one more fee you're going to have to pay before you actually buy the house. What do you think the appraiser does? What does it mean to appraise something? Determine the value. And that's what your appraiser does, right? The bank's about to loan you money on a house. house is worth $100,000, but you want to borrow $200,000. They gonna loan you the money? Probably not. But how are they going to determine it's only $100,000? The house is only worth $100,000. How are they going to figure that out? Huh?
Someone comes in and says that.
Who's that someone? The appraiser, right? The
Is
appraiser.
it the same when you like refinance your house?
Absolutely. When you go to refinance your house, the bank wants to know that that house is worth something, right? At least a lot more than what you're trying to borrow.
Who does the bank listen to? Like if the seller wants to sell it for $500,000 when it's only worth $200,000.
It's only worth $200,000?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So does the bank listen to the appraiser, or who does, if they, I mean, you pay technically $500,000 for it. It does.
Well,
I guess at some point the bank.
How do you
should
think?
say-
How do you think the appraiser comes up with the value of the house in the first place? How do you think he determines the value?
So I guess.
Google. Although you can do it on Google, I think there's a way to do it. Huh?
Nearby houses,
Say that again.
or square footage in nearby houses.
Yeah. Yeah, that's how they do it, right? Comparables. They look at houses that are similar to that house, usually within that neighborhood. They like to look at houses that are in the same general vicinity, right? That have sold previously or are in the process of being sold. And they compare those houses to this particular house. And that's how they determine a value. And they may subtract or add based on different characteristics of the home, right? Somebody fixed their basement up or made it look really nice down there, or they added a pool, or they did some other things to the house that either added value or they added a lease on the carpet again and decreased the value, right?
So who's hiring the appraiser, the seller or the buyer?
Who do you think is hired?
Well, I mean,
Who is it important to have that information?
you go. The seller wants to know how much his house is worth, the buyer wants to, not be buying this house for $500,000, it's only worth.
So who has a bigger interest?
Yeah, it's the buyer.
Buyer. The buyer is more interested in making sure that house is worth what he's trying to pay for it. And the bank has even a bigger interest. Because you might fall in love with the house, right? It's beautiful, it's what you always wanted. You don't care how much it costs. It's where you plan to live and die. So it's worth a lot more to you than it is to the bank, right? This is where you grew up as a child, right? Therese wants to move back to Vermont where he was born. He wants to buy the house he was born in. Right? Doesn't matter how much it costs. He's a rich attorney. He can afford it, right?
No, I'm going to be doing a lot of pro bono, so.
Again, maybe not.
So does the bank listen to the appraiser, no matter what crazy price the seller has, or?
Not now. It used to be that way. It used to be exactly as you're saying. You know what happened? I'm going to tell you something crazy. What happened was appraisers, real estate agents, and buyers were working with one another to inflate prices of the houses so that they can buy the house. Right? So what was happening back when the market was really bad, or really good, excuse me, before all these foreclosures started happening, right? The appraisers used to call us up and say, what's the contract for? What's the problem with that? Matt?
They should be.
They're asking the wrong person, are they, or they that should be in the house?
Let's suppose, right. Why are they asking me? Why do they care what the contract says? Should it matter what the contract price is? His job is not to figure out how to match my contract price. His job is to figure out what the house is worth. But that's not how it used to work. It used to be, they want to see the contract, they want to see how much the contract is for, and then they go and they figure out a way by finding comparables that meet that price, right? And they send that to the bank, right? So the bank ends up paying more for the house than it's actually worth. So what happened as a result now is banks have, you still get an appraisal done, but it's an independent appraisal. So now, in the past,